I'm Brenton House, and you were invited to see part 2 of an interview I did with Phil Libin, founder and CEO of mmhmm. Now, you can watch part 1 on my YouTube channel, but in this exciting conclusion, you will hear how mmhmm is changing the world of communication. And as a bonus, Phil answers the AI question that everyone seems to be asking. So buckle up as this special episode of The Interconnected starts right now. One thing I found with this software, it makes it easier on me as well. I can get my point across in a creative way much easier. In addition to being able to use this software for meetings, like I said, used it also for when I'm creating the videos for my YouTube channel. So I'm able to do things that would have taken forever in editing, and probably I'll just not do it because it would take so much time. So I'm able to do that while at the same time be able to get my message in the creative way I've been desiring to do forever. I agree. You can't separate entertainment really from educating, because if your education is boring, it's really going to be hard to capture their attention and captivate them to want to finish and want to learn.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think like once you have the intention that you want to make something expressive and effective, then we make it easy to do that. But you have to want to do that. If your motivation is, I want to do the least amount of work possible, I don't really care if the result is something that no one really wants to watch, then we're not the right tool. If your motivation is, I know that some thought and some planning and some work is required, and I'm ready to do it, then we'll make it as easy as it possibly can be to do it. And the goal is not to be necessarily high production value. The goal is to be expressive, right? It's to be effective. You don't have to be like super slick. In fact, very often it helps not to be. You do have to think about, how do I make this land correctly and stick into the head of the audience? And once you have that thought, then I think we're the ideal tool.
I mean, you hit on something too. If your goal is to just make things with the least amount of work, you're destined to fail, or the competition is going to easily pass you. One of the things that has come up a lot, especially in the last year, is AI. The tie-in for that is a lot of people then see AI as a tool for, I can just do the least amount of work possible. Have AI try and do my work. I can try and have AI write my stuff. I can have AI do things. Some people, their goal is simply to remove all the work, while others are trying to, how can I leverage AI to make my product better, my communication better, to do other things? So, I mean, I know AI has been around forever. You and I both know that, but generative AI has really brought this to almost every household now.
I think the way you put it is right. It does not benefit anyone. It does not benefit individuals. It doesn't benefit society. To make it easy, to make crap. So no one needs more mediocre stuff. And reducing the cost of mediocrity to zero makes the world worse. It doesn't make it better. And I don't think anyone's going to have a long-term advantage by making it effortless or free to just make mediocre stuff. And a lot of how people think they're going to use AI is that, right? It's like, oh, I can have it generate, automatic spam emails much easier than I could do before. And I'm like, okay, great. That's just making the world worse. The interesting use cases are not making it easier to do poor quality stuff, but making you better able to do higher quality stuff. It isn't about saving effort. It's about letting you spend that effort in ways that make a bigger impact. If you can spend less time struggling with, basics and more time actually refining, the message and making higher quality, then everyone wins. I don't think people should think of AI as a way to save themselves work. They should think of AI as a way to improve the quality, keeping the amount of work they do the same or very high, make the results even better. And I think the people who embrace it like that are going to have tremendous competitive advantages in life and work and in everything else. So yeah, we've seen all sorts of great use cases for AI, but they're not the lazy ones. If you're attracted to AI out of a sense of laziness, I don't think it's going to go well for you.
A lot of people are also, is this going to replace me? Is this going to replace my job? And over the years, there's an adjustment period. And then people figure out how to use this. And it just becomes expected that this is part of how you do your job.
There's a really interesting book, came out a few years ago, called Bullshit Jobs. Okay. So this came out before really the big AI revolution or whatever. It's not really about primarily tech. Despite the funny name, it's actually pretty serious economic work. The bullshit jobs theory is that a very large number of people have bullshit jobs, meaning they work on things that doesn't actually produce any net effect. Like it just all cancels each other out. Different countries have different levels of bullshit jobs. Some have very, very many, some relatively fewer. And different industries have different amounts of bullshit jobs. Part of the problem with bullshit jobs is the people that are in them, they kind of really suffer because they know that they're working on bullshit jobs. They don't mean anything. Bad for mental health. It's bad for all sorts of stuff. But unfortunately, very often the bullshit jobs are the higher paying ones. There's very few plumbers who have bullshit jobs. Yeah, if you're a plumber, like that's just like actual shit. But like you're doing useful stuff. If you're a truck driver, like you're not just driving around for no good reason. But a lot of us have bullshit jobs. And one way to really frame this, the current AI revolution, is what AI is really good at is replacing the bullshit jobs. And so if you have a job that doesn't need to be done at all, and you kind of have a sinking suspicion that it doesn't really need to be done, AI can do a pretty good job of it. But why? Why not just not have anyone do it? What, do we need AI writing spam emails? How about we just get rid of spam email? So yeah, I think a lot of people concerned about whether AI is going to take their job first should ask about, are you in a bullshit job? ChatGPT is great at that. It is the ultimate bullshitter. It's shockingly good at bullshitting. So yeah, if that's your job, now, if you're an illustrator or an artist or a marketing person or whatever, and you're not trying to like do the least amount of work, you're trying to improve the quality as much as possible of your work, like we talked about, then these new tools are amazing. But if you're looking at it as a way to just like put in less effort on your bullshit job, it's a big problem. But the real problem is like, you're in a bullshit job. You should think about not being in it. Again, I know that's easy to say and like, yeah, I kind of think CEOs are going to be the first to go when we have, it's like all we do is the jazz hands, and AI is already good at that. It's already good at being very confidently wrong. Like that's kind of my move, right? Confidently wrong is like a thing that they teach you in CEO school. And ChatGPT is amazing at being confidently wrong about everything. For people that are kind of unsure, that are knowledge workers, if you're doing something real, meaning that the result of your work actually benefits some real people, then if you look at how do I use AI to make it higher quality, do more of it, not spend less effort, then I think it's a huge opportunity.
So these are probably questions that we should have been asking ourselves before AI. Should I be doing this?
We work on stuff that's, the technology is very complicated. And so like there's a lot of work to make it reliable. I think we finally are at a point where the product is good enough and understandable enough to be generally recommendable. I think like a year ago, that wasn't the case. It was really great. People were motivated to like stick with it and figure it out, but it wasn't very easy to understand. We've really focused on trying to make it better, led by the support team. So the support team were great. Shannon runs that team, does a great job, but everyone in it is amazing. And they were kind of the tip of the spear, right? So they have to actually like talk to real humans and find out all of the ways that we're disappointing people and prioritize how we fix all those things. What we said to the support team right from the early on, which was a little bit different from I think the way other tech companies do it, is we put the support team early on as part of the product team. And we said, you are product designers. Your real job is not actually to solve a user's problems. That's like a side benefit if you can do that. Because if all you do is solve user problems, someone contacts support and you solve their problem, that's great, but you haven't really done anything because you've only helped one person, but that problem may persist and 10,000 people may not contact support. Your real job is to see what the real problems are and work with the engineering team to actually make sure we fix them in the product so that you don't have to keep fixing it. And I think that's a good philosophy. I think the team we have really kind of reflects that. They think of themselves as product designers because they are. They're kind of doing the hardest type of product design, which is the one that actually makes contact with the real customers.
Where do you see the future going with virtual communication and
Yeah, I think, virtual communication it's a little bit of an awkward phrasing. I think it's just communication. I think like basically is the best way to explain yourself. That's what we're building. That's what we want to build. That's our goal. It's the best way to explain yourself. The big epidemic with the world right now is a failure of understanding. Like if I had to pick one thing to be great at, I'd be great at explaining myself. That like unlocks everything else. We're the best way to explain yourself. How? Well, I think you actually just said it earlier, right? Because you said you use it for videos and for meetings. Well, those are actually the two halves that are really important. You use it for synchronous and asynchronous, live and recorded. Well, recorded video is an amazing way to convey complex information, much better than doing it live. You can prepare, you can take multiple takes until you get it right. You can have visual information, much easier for the presenter than presenting live. But more importantly, like we talked about with the point of empathy, it's actually much better for the audience because the audience doesn't have to watch it in real time. At the same time, they can watch it when they're ready, when they're feeling like they can understand it. They can watch it at whatever speed they want. They can rewatch it as many times as they want. They have access to all the supporting materials, right? So like conveying complex information is something that you should almost never do live. It's almost better recorded, but live communication is much better for gauging feedback, actually having a discussion, answering questions, give and take, and for making decisions. And those are the two parts that are important for any kind of real communication, right? You need to be able to explain yourself, to convey information, and then you need to be able to decide and discuss. That's what we do. We do both of those things. The key is, I think a lot of people haven't understood that those are two separate things. I think like we've evolved with meeting culture, where we somehow think that like the way that we work is we have a meeting, but a meeting is the worst of all worlds. A meeting is like a bunch of people sitting together, either in a physical room or on video, it doesn't really matter, doing what? For a lot of the times, it's just one person talking. If it's just one person talking, that shouldn't be synchronous. It shouldn't be a meeting. That should be recorded. And then there's a little bit of like making decisions and doing it interactively, but that's pretty poor for that as well. So the big power move is like shifting a little bit of your work from synchronous to asynchronous, shifting a little bit of how you interact with people from real time and live to recorded. And then when you're talking live, whether it's on video or in person, you're really making it count. You're making it really good. If you're actually in person, I mean, you're out to dinner, you're having good experiences, you're bonding. If you're, on a Zoom call or something, great. But after you've already conveyed the information, so all you're doing is having a discussion and making decisions. So yeah, you do those two things and you can have superpowers of being good at explaining yourself. Well, look, like all entertainment, again, like I think we can learn a lot from entertainment. We are not an entertainment company. We're about making you better at communicating, mostly work stuff and school stuff, but we can learn a lot from entertainment. And entertainment for the first few, tens of thousands of years of human evolution, all entertainment was live. It was synchronous. And you sat around a campfire and like played drums or musical instruments, or you told stories. It was all like live. And it was very good, right? Like actually just rereading, there's a new translation of the Odyssey and the Iliad, which is really good. So I'm just reading that and kind of remembering. I haven't read it in like 30 years. But that all comes from like oral verbal tradition, right? Like right. Sat around stories. It was all live. It was all synchronous. And then we invented like written language. So you can write stuff down. And all of a sudden, like it got way bigger. And then we had theater, and then we invented like cinema. And then we had like real reach and real, stars. And then we invented the internet and YouTube. And so like in entertainment, we figured out that there's a time and a place for live. There's a time and a place to go to a live concert and a live theater Broadway show. But that is a small minority of like the total amount that we're exposed to. Imagine if like you gave up all streaming, all recorded, all everything, and you only consumed entertainment live. It'd be so weird. But that's what we all did for, many thousands of years up until very recently. But for whatever reason, we just haven't made that decision. We just haven't made that same transition from work. We think that like, oh yeah, I'm a boss. My job is I sit in meetings and I talk to people live. Whichever 10 people happen to be there at that time. Makes no sense. We've already obviously taken little bits and pieces, bites out of that with email and Slack and things like that. But like the real revolution, the real way to fantastically improve the quality of your work and your productivity is to just be intentional about it. Like this I do synchronously, this I do asynchronously. I'm going to move as much as I can. That's about explaining things asynchronous because it's better for me and it's better for the audience. And it's more important for the audience than for me. And then the times that we actually schedule to talk live, those are going to be great discussions. We're never going to have a boring meeting ever again. I think it's a pretty good way to live. I think if you do it right, if you do it well, it takes a little bit more effort than smacking the record button and just talking. But again, that's just voicemail, and no one needs more voicemail. No one needs video voicemail. Put in a little bit more effort, it can be really good. And we try to make it as easy as possible to put in that little bit of extra effort. There's been this movement, a few companies do this, which I think is like, they've heart is in the right place, but I kind of don't like this approach, which is they're starting to do like sort of meeting, like expense calculators where they can put up like how much this meeting is costing us by like, taking the salaries of everyone in the room and like multiplying it. So you can see like, oh my God, we had this meeting and it just cost us, $20,000. And I don't think that's the right approach because I think that's actually, again, it's putting the emphasis on the wrong place. Yes, it's costing you a lot of money, but this is not about cost reduction. It's about opportunity expansion. It's about like, if you actually weren't all in this meeting and you were all working on other stuff and you were communicating much more efficiently, how many more customers, how much more revenue, how much more good stuff can you do? Flip it over as a top line thing. And that becomes much more compelling than reminding people that, you pay them a lot of money and here's how much it's costing. Like, you're going to pay those people anyway. The point is not to like save money on salary. The point is to get far more productivity, far more actual, delightful, beautiful, positive stuff during the hours of the day that, they should devote to it.
Thank you again. I appreciate it. And I look forward to having follow-up conversations too about some of this as the world changes and where you see everything going with this.
Brenton, anytime. Thanks for having me on.
All right. Thank you.
Take care.